There's going to be a point in your life where you really want a job. And to get that job, you're going to need to pass the HR interview. And interviewing with HR is different than when you interview with a hiring manager. I've been in recruitment for 15 years, and in today's video, I'm going to explain those differences and tell you exactly what you need to do to nail your HR interview. Let's go. Now, first things first, interviewing with HR is much different than interviewing with a hiring manager. And the reason is HR is insulated from the technical proficiencies needed for a role. They're never going to understand the nuances of a role like the hiring manager will. That's not an insult, that's just a reality. They don't do the work. If you're interviewing for a software engineer role, for example, the manager, software engineering manager, is going to know all about coding. They're going to know about their processes. They're going to know all that stuff. HR isn't. So HR is going to be asking you questions in a much different way than the hiring manager will. So I'm going to cover what they're going to specifically ask you, what you need to do, and what you need to convey so you can nail that interview and get to the hiring manager, because that's where you need to impress that person and ultimately get hired. The HR interview is mostly there as a fail-safe to make sure that hiring people who are going to be bad fits for the team, bad fits for the culture, and they are more of sort of a check-the-box interview, kind of like recruiters. We are not the experts, we are not technical experts, but we do know about interviewing and spotting a person who's going to be a good fit for the overall company. That's what the HR interview is about. Now, the first question you're going to need to know how to answer is tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself is one of those questions that HR will always ask. A lot of hiring managers will ask this question too, because it's a really great way to start the interview. Now, when someone asks you, hey, tell me about yourself, this isn't an invitation for you to share your life story, right? And this isn't supposed to be a 5 to 10 minute answer where you go back and regale them of all the things that made you you over your childhood and life. This is more so, tell me about yourself from a professional perspective, right? So you want to talk about what you've done in your career, how you've gotten to this point, what has set you up for success to succeed in this role from an education and experience standpoint, and anything that might position you to be a really good fit for the role and why you're interested in this role now. So it's, why am I qualified from background, both education and experience, to why is this a good fit now? That's how you should look at this answer. Now, if they go, oh, okay, well, I want to know a little bit about you personally, then yes, tell them about your brothers, your sisters, your parents, your dog, your cat, your juggling talents, whatever it is, that's when you do it. But when you get this question initially, this is supposed to be a commercial, a 90-second commercial about how you got to this point and why everything up to this point has positioned you to be a really good fit for this role now. Now, the next question they're going to ask you is, what do you know about our organization? I, as a corporate recruiter, asked this question to almost every single candidate that I ever interviewed. And you'd be surprised the range of answers. Sometimes you get people who would be able to tell you a lot about the organization. And sometimes you'd talk to someone and they just wouldn't know. They'd be like, well, I think you guys have products that are in manufacturing, and that doesn't get it done. Now, the reason they ask this question is because they want to know, do you care? Do you care enough to do some research into this organization? Is this interview a priority for you? And are you the type of person who would go into an interview unprepared? Because they don't want to hire that person. So what you need to be able to do here is talk a little bit about the organization, their goods or services, maybe a little bit about their history, but this isn't a huge test. It's really just check the box. Did they prepare a little bit? Can they articulate what we do? And it shouldn't be a big deal, but if you've done even a little bit of research on the organization, whatever you have to say here should suffice. By the way, if you want to be the best candidate possible and nail every interview you have for the rest of your life, what I want you to do is go down into the description box, that first link with the fire emojis, that is my full interview prep guide. And it's essentially an entire course that is going to prepare you to be the best candidate possible. There's instructional videos, there is worksheets, and there's actual templates that you can use to interface with both hiring managers and recruiters. It is a full guide that should position you for success. The next question you're going to get a lot in HR interviews is, why do you want to work here? This is an incredibly important question, because if you answer this in a non-inspiring way, someone who is equally qualified as you will answer it in a passionate way, and they're probably going to go with that person. Now, the key to answering this question is using the 50-50 rule. The 50-50 rule basically states the first 50% of your answer, this should be, what is it about the organization that's appealing to you? And the second 50% of your answer should be, why is this role a good fit for you right now? Right? So you can pick a lot of things about the company that fit like the first 50%. It could be about how you're a longtime fan of the brand, fan of the products, how you like what they've done for giving back to the community, their different philanthropic efforts, if they've won any awards that you particularly find appealing. Whatever it is, just find something about the organization that draws you to them and use that as the foundation of your answer, and then follow it up with why you're a good fit. And if you can do that, you'll nail it. The next question you're likely to get when you're interviewing with HR is, what are your salary expectations? They want to do this because HR is really focused on making sure they're not going to submit someone to the hiring manager who they can't afford. Because hiring managers will fall in love with a candidate, and suddenly they won't care too much about the salary range. But HR is really focused on making sure that we're doing things consistently, following process. That, in general, is a good thing. So they are going to ask this question. However, from your perspective, you want to retain as much leverage as possible. So in a perfect world, they tell you what the range is first before you say your number. So whenever I'm in this situation and someone asks me, what are you looking for compensation-wise? I go, that's a really good question. And for me, at this point in my career, compensation isn't the most important thing. I'm really focused on growth and taking that next step, but I'm open to compensation that is fair and commensurate with my experience. What is the range for this role? And if you can get them to tell you the range, that is great. You win. You can then use that knowledge to give your number, etc. They go, well, the role is 100 to 120K. You can go, okay, well, I'm looking for 120K, right? Like, you can do that if you have that information. If you don't have that information, you obviously can't do that. Now, if they go, well, the role is open, what are you looking for salary-wise? Then you're going to have to give them a number. You don't want to get into a negotiation. You don't want this to be a contentious thing. So make sure before you go to the interview, you do your research and you understand what somebody in your industry, in your role, with your experience, is getting paid. You can find this on salary.com or other research. Just Google it and you should be able to find what your salary range is for a role like this. Now, lastly, they're going to ask you behavioral interview questions. Behavioral interview questions are some of the more common interview questions you're going to get asked in the interview process. They're basically a question that starts with, tell me about a time when. Some good examples are, tell me about a time when you disagreed with your boss. Tell me about a time when you went above and beyond for a customer. Tell me about a time when you led a project to success. Tell me about a time when you failed and you had to overcome something, right? Those are questions that are common. So what you want to do is prepare to answer those questions, but it's actually more complicated than that. It's why I made this video here. This video here is a strategy on everything you need to do to nail your behavioral interview. So I'm done here, but you should definitely go watch that video and I'll see you over there.